Welcome to Everything Casual, bringing you original football casual videos from the golden era of the 80s and 90s, right up to current day. Football away day stories and historic clashes between football firms. Subscribe so you don't miss out. We upload videos every week.
I am very proud to be English, but that extends when I go on holiday to respect other people's countries and that sort of thing. I believe that's representing your country, and that's being patriotic as well, not just sort of the way I play football.
When the national anthem's played, does that do something to you at Wembley?
I think every time you hear the national anthem, it sends a tingle up your back. It obviously does that for a reason, you know. Rules at Finsbury Park on the 23rd, and maybe the Nevilles might learn a thing or two by popping
Will
along.
you get a chance to go along?
Depends how far we progress in the tournament, really, you know. I'd like to see them.
For some people, Euro 96 was a great time, and lots of English and Scottish firms turned up. Friendships were made, but some firms also used the opportunity to have a pop at each other. Let's listen to witness accounts from lads that was actually there, and try and get to the bottom of what really happened. If you was there, or you agree or disagree with events in this video, then let us know in the comment section. In the year 1996, England staged its first major football tournament since winning the World Cup in 1966. It was a major achievement by the government and Football Association to win the right to stage Euro 96 in England, given that the hooligan problem that existed in the country was always going to go against the bid. There were fears that any trouble would harm a further bid to host the 2006 World Cup finals, and the authorities and police staged a huge operation to ensure that the festival of football passed off peacefully. Against all the odds, they pulled it off, and despite attempts by hooligans from all over the country to join forces and prove that they were still the world's #1 hooligan firm, it was a lack of credible opposition rather than the police operation that kept things under control. Let's hear some witness accounts from lads. The following is Lee from Oldham. There was so much hype before Euro 96 that Germany, Holland, Scotland and even the Czechs were coming, that the hooligan underworld was in a frenzy. For months before, there were meetings going on all over the country between every major firm, and most club rivalries were put on ice, as many of the main faces agreed that we needed to be as one to defend our country from the foreign invaders. England's first game was against the Swiss, and although they have a few problems over there and the likes of Basel and Zurich have been known to travel, they were not one of the countries who we thought would bring a troublesome following over, which proved to be the case. The Germans were different though, and their first match at Old Trafford against the Czech Republic was earmarked as a must-attend game for all the lads. A meet was sorted at the Old Cock in Mills Hill, as we were told that the Germans were turning out a firm in Manchester at the game, and given their reputation, there were high hopes that they would. 70 Oldham were joined by Carlisle, Shrewsbury, West Brom, Villa, Newcastle and Stockport, and we put together a massive firm, 100% mobbed up, but they failed to do their own thing and were not keen on the joint force idea. As it was their patch, it was their call, so nobody bothered them until later on. After a few false alarms, we went bowling down to the site. As for the umpteenth time, some cock said the Germans had shown. It was a setup though, and we bounced straight into a huge firm of football intelligence police, who had their counterparts from Berlin, Hamburg and Munich with them. We were split up and given a hard time, and that set the tone for the complete tournament. It was a few weeks of false alarms and police harassment. And although in the eyes of the police, during that tournament they did their job well, it was a massive operation and fuck knows how much it cost, but they kept things under wraps. It was all to do with keeping the family atmosphere going. The massive media attention it all got was reader friendly and gave England the chance of winning the race to hold the 2006 World Cup finals. What they didn't bank on was that, as soon as we went abroad again, we caused murder and fucked it all up anyway. The no-show by the Germans was a major letdown, Mobs split up. And, as usual after a day on the beer, it ended up with everyone falling out. And the biggest brawl was when United had it with Carlisle in Deansgate. And it was a proper set two. United were looking for City and bumped into Carlisle, who were right up for it. That was not what we had hoped for, and if the Germans were not going to turn out at a game that was played over the weekend, then who else was? The next game for us was Scotland, so we were still upbeat that weeks of plotting and organising would not go to waste. For the Scotland game, I sorted a meet with the jocks in Cockfosters. We were good mates with the Hibs lads, so it was easy to arrange, and we knew that, unlike the Germans, they would definitely turn up. It was well organised, but the police got onto it, and it was yet another major letdown. The firm we assembled was quality, mostly northern, as, like United in Manchester, a lot of the Cockney mobs were doing their own thing on their own patch. Once I knew we had more than enough to sort this private battle of Britain out, I drove over with some Grimsby lads to see if the jocks were there, and there was a good 200 of them, so we went back to Cockfosters to get the lads ready, and the scene that met me was unbelievable. The whole area was cordoned off with the biggest police presence I have ever seen in my life. It was a massive operation, and there must have been a grass in the camp, as, if they had stumbled on us, they wouldn't have got that amount of backup there in that time. They were stopping and searching cars, and we had to park up, just dump the motor and escape through gardens, as they were trying to nick the people who had set it up, and I knew my name would be in the hat due to my connections with the Hibs lads. The biggest fight of the day that was reported was when the Cockney firm bumped into the jocks at Trafalgar Square. That was just a load of barmies, and a few firm, the Scottish national firm, all Scotland's top lads, saw very little all day. In fact, the biggest battle was Carlisle again, who had it with Spurs. Those lads were nuts and didn't care who called it on, they always obliged. After that day, people lost interest. We had taken it to the Germans and the jocks, and both times the only people fighting were fucking Carlisle. Euro 96 captured the hearts of the normal fans. The song by those pair of twats Baddiel and Skinner, and the marketing of the whole tournament, got the whole country jumping on the Euro 96 bandwagon, and with the police so well informed, the hooligan element had a hard time of things. The Wolves lads, who were always well represented on the national scene, were also left disappointed at the Scotland game. So, let's hear from a Wolves lad. It was a game we had looked forward to for some time. The nation wanted to beat the jocks, the old enemy on and off the pitch. About 50 of us set off from Wolves and go on the early train to Euston, including one of our lads who turned up late and had to be pulled on board through the windows as the automatic doors were locked and the train was starting to pull off. When we got there, half of the lads decided to go to the Phoenix pub to meet some Chelsea. The other half of us decided to hang fire around the station. The police numbers was unbelievable, so we eventually moved on to the Phoenix. But when we got there, half of London's Met had surrounded the place, filming everyone. If you had a match ticket, you could leave after giving all your details. Those without were kept in the pub until halfway through the game. Later that evening, we managed to get down to Trafalgar Square where all the jocks were playing up, before seeing we needed to hide behind barriers and Old Bill. Somehow, we managed to get through, and for a couple of minutes, bottles, glasses and cans of beer were flying at them, before the Old Bill landed, and they soon drew their batons and waded into us all. A police dog jumped on my back, ripping into me, and I was screaming for the copper to get him off. I looked up, and our lads were pissing themselves laughing, while this fucking German shepherd was feasting on me. The handler managed to get him off, and I was nicked, but the dog latched on to another lad, so I made a run for it, and managed to get 300 yards up the road. When the Old Bill pulled me by McDonald's, I looked like Steve McQueen in The Great Escape. Although mine was not very great or half as spectacular, as I was stood there, hands on my head, loads of media taking pictures, top ripped, with blood pissing out of my back as a Sky News crew filmed me getting rearrested. I complained to a copper with his pips on his shoulders, and said to show the photographers my bite marks, when the old Bill main man tells me I can go, which was a right result. Day over, we headed back to Euston for the train home and bumped into a load of Birmingham, which meant that the day was back on and that the journey home was going to be lively. One of their mouthpieces walked up to my brother and asked him who he thought the top firm in Brum was. I mean, there are only 2 clubs in it, and our kid says, "It isn't you, it's Villa." The transport police see that things are not going well during this informal chat and put the blues mob on one end of the train and us on the other. 3 Villa lads joined us who we knew from the raves, and that was it for the blues. There was a bit of a scuffle near the buffet, so the handful of transport police called for backup, and by the time we got to New Street, there were about 100 old Bill waiting on the platform for us, and we were sent home and not allowed to join the blues for a night out in their town. The day did not bring the violence that many of the lads anticipated, but Mark, an Arsenal fan from Bristol, was involved in a brawl near Wembley with some unusual opponents. This is his story. Mark, Arsenal. I left Bristol about 4 in the morning and got as far as Swindon when I got stopped and done by the police for drink driving, so that was a bad start to the day. But I was let out after a few hours and was still at Wembley at 9:30 a.m, where I met up with 4 lads from North London, along with 4 lads from Bristol in the Green Man pub near the famous Old Ground. We had a few beers, the atmosphere was good, and we even had a laugh and a joke with a few Scots we'd got talking to inside. We took the walk down Wembley Way with plenty of songs, and it was all good-natured banter even in the ground, where Gazza's goal had made it the perfect day. There were a few jocks mixed in with us, but there was no trouble, and they all seemed to be a quiet and decent bunch. After the game, we went to head back to the Green Man. As we got near the boozer, about 15 women in their 50s started yelling in broad Scottish accents, "Oi, you English niggers, let's have a fight. We want to fight you." We looked at each other, and they were indeed shouting to the 4 black lads in our company. Initially, we thought it was a joke, but it turned out they were right up for it, because as we were standing there laughing at the state of them, they came over throwing empty beer cans at us. I turned around to them and said to one of them, "Listen, my love, you are old enough to be my mum, so fucking behave yourselves." I half expected the old birds to piss off, but it made them worse, and the main mouthpiece shouted back, "I don't fucking give a flying fuck. Come on, let's fight." This tirade went on for about 5 minutes, and we were absolutely stunned and didn't know what to do, so we walked off, leaving them yelling the racial abuse. But instead of pissing off, they have only gone and fucking followed us towards Wembley Way. As we got around the corner, they have come behind us with about 30 Scottish blokes, and it's gone bang off. It was madness. There were police everywhere, and this bus load of blokes and their pissed up wives are flying into us, mainly after the black lads. There was not much damage getting done, and a few old Bill were standing by, letting it go on. It was like a comedy sketch. Then, the main police geezer stood on the wall with a tannoy, and his exact words were, "If you lot of numpty idiots don't break it up, you're going to get arrested." As quickly as it started, it finished, and the Scottish lot pissed off back to their bus, while we went back to the Green Man stunned. Back in the pub, we even saw one of the jocks who had been fighting with us, and he was with a really old bloke, who was probably his father. It has to be one of them unbelievable moments when you think, no wonder there's trouble when they have too much drink inside them. A few days later, England played their final group game against Holland, after 2 previous no-shows by the Dutch, who by now were claiming bizarrely they did not follow the national side. Hopes were not high they would turn a firm for this game, and true to form, they didn't. On the field, Holland were destroyed, and with Alan Shearer scoring a vital goal and Terry Venables' side playing quality football, the country was gripped by football fever, and the nation began to believe that this could be England's year. A penalty shootout win the following Saturday set up a semi-final date with Germany, and although they brought a reasonable following, what lads they did bring were kept well under wraps, and didn't have enough interest in trying to break the protective police blanket that was placed around them. It was a sensible decision. Yet another penalty shootout defeat meant that the carnival mood, the coming home tune, and the foam hands were replaced by anger, police sirens, and boots and fists, as an orgy of violence erupted all over the country. The media, who were probably under government advice to do so, had kept a positive approach during the tournament, but the night of violence could not be brushed under the carpet, and they were forced to report the news that the FA had dreaded, as they still harboured high hopes of clinching the World Cup bid. The Mirror called it a night of terror and reported, "Over 200 England fans were arrested last night in London after Yobs went on the rampage in Trafalgar Square after England crashed out of the European Championship 6-5 on penalties to rivals West Germany." Over 2,000 England fans converged on Trafalgar Square. 25 policemen were injured, 40 vehicles damaged, 6 overturned, and 2 set alight. 7 buildings were also set alight in what was described as the worst scenes since the poll tax riots in 1990. It made grim reading for everyone who had hoped that the behaviour of the fans over the previous 3 weeks would be good enough to convince FIFA and UEFA delegates that hooliganism in England was on the decline. However, it was not just in London where trouble erupted, and the Mirror report confirmed that hooliganism was alive and kicking all over the country. In Brighton, a Russian student was stabbed 5 times. The English Yobs demanded to know whether or not he was German. The crazed mob attacked many foreigners. 300 fans looted shops and rampaged through Bedford, leaving damage estimated to be in the thousands. In Thames Valley, hundreds of youths rampaged through the town centre and clashed with police, causing mayhem in their wake. 5 policemen were injured in Bradford as England fans went on a rampage of wanton destruction. Another 5 police officers were hurt as a mob of 60 Yobs went on the rampage in Newport, Shropshire. There were a total of 942 football-related arrests made during Euro 96, and the reports of outbreaks of violence in most towns and cities in England was proof enough that, although football had indeed come home, the violence that goes hand in hand with it in this country had not gone away. If you were there and have a story to tell about your experience at Euro 96, or you disagree with anything said in this video, then let us know and set the record straight in the comment section. As always, thank you for watching. If you enjoy my videos, then you can show your support by clicking subscribe and giving the video a like. Until next time, God bless. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If you subscribe, you will be notified when we release a new video. It could be your firm we make a video about next, so don't miss out and hit the subscribe button. You can find me on Facebook or email me if you have a good story to tell. See you next time.